The state fire marshal's office determined a deadly fire in Fort Kent was set accidentally.
So we told you earlier this week about that fire on East Main Street on Monday. Investigators say that fire started in the bedroom of an apartment. They have tentatively identified Ruth Charles as the person who died there. An autopsy will be done to determine exactly how she died. Investigators say 2 other people were displaced.
Community members are invited to a memorial service next week to honor the longtime Searsmont Assistant Fire Chief who died over the weekend. Chief Wayne Woodbury died Sunday from injuries he suffered while responding to the explosion at Robbins Lumber last month. The service is happening Wednesday, June 24th at the Belfast Area High School. It will take place around 1 p.m. Woodbury had spent more than 60 years in the local fire service. Meanwhile, Maine Health Maine Medical Center is the state's only level 1 trauma center and the only hospital in Maine that can actually treat burns. The hospital treated several people injured in the Searsmont explosion last month.
Our Chris Costa explains what makes Maine Med a level 1 center and why it plays a necessary role in our state's network of hospitals.
Trauma centers have to meet certain criteria, and those criteria determine whether a hospital is a level 3 trauma center like Central Maine Medical Center in Lewiston, a level 2 trauma center like Eastern Maine Medical Center in Bangor, or a level 1 trauma center like Maine Health Maine Medical Center in Portland. We got an inside look at what makes Maine Med a level 1 trauma center, and the doctors there tell us it's a critical anchor in a network of hospitals that they say is under strain.
We huddled with the emergency department, the operating room, and got things ready to be able to start accepting multiple injured patients.
8 minutes before that, we had an unexpected delivery of a newborn. Then we got our first patient from air flight from Searsmont. At the same time, we got a cardiac arrest. And within 2 hours, we had 8 other patients that burn traumas from Searsmont.
All of that managed at Maine's only level 1 trauma center.
The next centers would be in New Hampshire and Boston, and the question is, would people survive long enough to get there?
Dr. Brian Morse, Chief of Trauma at Maine Health Maine Medical Center, says in the last 5 years, the number of trauma patients has nearly doubled.
We've actually become the largest by volume patients trauma center in New England now at Maine Medical Center, Portland.
An anchor for Maine's network of hospitals. Smaller hospitals from Rockland to Bangor took in patients from the Robbins Lumber Mill fire. Within hours, all 10 were sent to Maine Med for more intense care.
And I think that's where the state of Maine is really in duress at this point. There's large portions of the state that don't have access to timely trauma care.
I can't say enough about our local hospitals throughout the state. I mean, they are prepared to stabilize patients and get them to the next level of care. But what we have is the specialists will often have to place an ET tube and put them on a ventilator.
Dr. Samir Haidar has spent 20 years working in Maine Med's emergency department, using tubes like these to keep a patient breathing before the next step in their treatment.
We call it the golden hour. We want them from the trauma event to our operating room basically within an hour.
When it comes to burn patients, time is not on their side.
The intensity that they need for their IV fluid and blood product resuscitation is minute to minute critical.
Maine Med is the only place in the state that can treat severe burns. Dr. Morse walks us through a room most Mainers will never see and hopefully never need.
We have multiple carts like this in here that are, basically being depleted. It's really like a beehive of activity.
Robotic lights help doctors inspect the burns.
But it also, these lamps are heated, and so it helps keep the patient warm, which is really important in minimizing hypothermia in burn patients.
Hydrotherapy helps them clean the wounds. And that panel in the ceiling?
This also is a radiant heater that helps keep patients warm from above.
They have to keep the room warm too, 90 degrees or hotter. Teams wear these ice vests to keep cool.
They can basically become just drenched in sweat from the heat of the room. You can go through this whole box in the course of treatment of just one burn.
The Robbins family says Jim, Alden, and Lily Robbins were all taken to Boston for burn treatment. For those who stayed here, Maine Medical Center set aside a waiting room specifically for those Searsmont families, because only the people in that room can understand what each other is going through.
The Searsmont event highlighted for the nation to see what we do in Maine, but on a day-to-day basis, this is what we do, and I think this is what makes us special.
Special, and shouldering the load for the entire state.
It's functioning in its current state, but it's very fragile.
We can handle 10 acute patients, and no matter what else comes in, the front door or the back door or through a helicopter that hasn't been announced to us, brings us a lot of pride. But it takes resources, it takes funding.
I think the most rewarding thing for us is when we see them come back. People come back and visit us in the ICU, visit us in the office. That's what keeps us going, is seeing them on the other side.
That was Chris Costa reporting. Just this week, we told you firefighter Jacob Spaulding was released from that facility, Maine Med. A spokesperson for the hospital telling us they can no longer provide current patient information from those injured in Searsmont.